Already, fanboys and fangirls, it looks like the chip shortage is getting worse and worse because it's now going to affect a lot of companies, and the two biggest ones are Samsung and Apple. Starting with Samsung, it looks like their EXYNOS chipsets are out, and Qualcomm will be taking everything over. This is a very big rumor, so we're going to discuss this for a little bit. Also on today's episode, Apple's iPhone series are, as you know, getting the A16 for the Pro models, but the non-Pro models will be getting the last year's model. Well, it looks like that this new model will not only affect this iPhone, but the next iPhones to come. We have more information on that. And lastly, to round it all off, to finalize the video, as you know, Apple CarPlay is rolling out its new next generation design, but this gives us a better look at the Apple Car, so we'll talk about that in today's episode. All of that on today, so stay tuned. So story number one, the main story, the Samsung Galaxy and also iPhone next generation models. For the purposes of this video, we're gonna just make the Samsung the main story because this is actually a very big deal. And I wanna focus on this one because we already know about what Apple's doing, but this is kind of a very weird approach by Samsung. And honestly, this is one that might affect them for the long term as well as Apple. So focusing on Samsung for the moment, it seems, according to several reports, that Samsung is looking to be more in line with Qualcomm and using their chipsets over their own EXYNOS. Now, on the surface of this rumor, you're probably saying to yourself, this doesn't sound like a valid rumor, this doesn't make any sense. Well, this report is coming from Ming-Chi Kuo. And if you know anything about Ming-Chi Kuo, he is a very reputable and reliable source. So take this story with a grain of salt, but also remember who this is coming from. According to Kuo, he claims that the upcoming SoC suppliers for Samsung's S23 models will be Qualcomm over their EXYNOS. It seems that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 Next chipset is not only doing an excellent job of optimizing, but that also it is just more better for the hardware. Whereas the EXYNOS chipset, it seems that, according to Kuo, they have had mixed results and have just seemed not to have really been a consistent performance based with their EXYNOS sets. Now, taking a look more into this, the biggest issues that Kuo said that Samsung is replacing the EXYNOS with Qualcomm full-time is because of two reasons: heating performances and battery issues. The EXYNOS is undoubtedly making it worse for those two areas, whereas the Qualcomm chipsets have proven to be a huge hit with cooling, battery performance, and then of course you add Samsung's hardware to all this, it seems like a smooth breeze. Now, here's the thing. While this rumor it seems very valid, and there have been many reports going back and forth talking about how Samsung was going to do EXYNOS, replace Qualcomm, they were going to do this, they were going to do that. There's multiple stories to this, and there are multiple areas we have to discuss. So the first thing we have to discuss is the limitations with Qualcomm in Europe. Now, as you know, that's the reason why Samsung uses their EXYNOS chipsets, because the modems in those models work with the European areas. They work with the European cellular technology, and there are limitations to Qualcomm. Now, it could be that maybe the Qualcomm modem sets have reached an agreement where they can work overseas and they probably do a better job. Who knows? But that's the first thing you need to know. Number two, Samsung has made every single effort to try to push their EXYNOS chipsets. I, for one, have been a huge fan of their EXYNOS chipsets. I know in the beginning they had a very rocky start, but they recently were able to pick it up and get the ball moving. But it seems in the last few years that Samsung has just realized, look, maybe it's just not working, and Qualcomm has just been the right task. And number three, the last thing to discuss, is Qualcomm themselves. This is excellent for them because Apple, as you know, is looking to get rid of their modem sets. They don't want nothing to do with them, they want full control, and keeping with Samsung will not only keep them money-wise relevant, but it will also work hand in hand, because if you know anything about Qualcomm and Samsung, they have a very good partnership. So, rounding this all off and then going to the next story, this is one that I kind of had a feeling was going to be happening. I didn't know it was going to be happening soon, but again, this is all just a rumor. Now, Kuo does say that this will be for the S23 series, and one of the other things to remember is that we do have a chip shortage going on right now, so if there is any issues going on with Samsung's EXYNOS manufacturing process, it would just make sense to go with the Qualcomm chipsets, so that way you can kind of compromise for the chip shortage. But you could see there are multiple factors going into this than just a chip shortage. and that's going to happen with the next story. But to round it all off, in my opinion, this would be a great move. This would honestly work levels for Samsung, as it would make the quality of their phone still #1, but that you have more flexibility with heating, cooling components, and lastly, most importantly, battery performance. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the S23, but again, take this report with a grain of salt, but remember, this is coming from Ming-Chi Kuo. This is not coming from anybody else. Story number 2, keeping up with Ming-Chi Kuo, let's talk about the iPhone chip shortage others. Now, as you know, Apple is being hit now, finally. After so long of being able to kind of handle the chip shortage, they are now starting to feel the pressure. As we've heard many reports going back saying that Apple's manufacturing of the chips are going to go up in cost, that they'll have to reuse CPUs, they're going to have to work with what they have on hand, etc., etc. Well, according to another report from Ming-Chi Kuo, it seems that this current model of Apple sticking with the last year models for the non-pros, and then the pro models get the newest chipset, it seems that this is going to be happening from the foreseeable future. As according to Kuo, this not only works in keeping costs down in production, but that over time, once Apple does finally get rid of Qualcomm modems and finally have a hand in all of the technology, this will ultimately, at the end of the day, lower costs and will classify the iPhones in a mid-range kind of area. Now, here's the thing. When have the standard models ever been mid-range? They aren't priced like a mid-range, so just remember that. But lastly, most importantly, this will also help to distinguish Apple now with their flagship model and their mid-flagship models, and then of course the SE. This is actually not a bad thing because, and here's the thing, it's not a bad thing in terms of distinguishing the models from flagship and premium flagship. The reason I say this is not a bad thing is because now the pros can finally be on their own level with their own exclusive chipset, also the camera technology, etc. But on the flip side, this is again another positive because, negative, because now the last year models, you don't have to upgrade them. You could just hold on to your phone and then wait 2 years and then get a new one. But that actually isn't a bad idea either. So listen, there are multiple ways to look at this story. There are multiple ways to take this. So all I'm gonna say is this. If you think this is a negative, I don't disagree with you. If you think this is a positive, I also don't disagree with you. So take what you want. And lastly, the final story, let's talk about the Apple Car. Now, Apple CarPlay, the next generation model, the renders online have given us a better indication of what exactly Apple is going to do with their car. And taking a look at the software, taking a look at a lot of features from some new images, we can see that Apple is looking to work on a car that not only is controlled just like how Tesla operates, with the screen being the whole powerhouse, but it seems that Apple is also going for a more minimalist design and is also looking to push features over buttons. Because according to these images, it seems that everything at the center of the car will be software based. So if you want to do anything, it'll all be software based. Then of course Siri will be integrated with your iPhone, making your iPhone pretty much the actual key. And then lastly, finally, just to really kind of round it off, it looks like the car will also reportedly, although I really do not think this is going to happen, but whoever said this, steering wheelless. You realize how bad that would be if they never released a steering wheel. Like, that is so idiotic. But apparently some people think that that's going to happen, and for those who think that's going to happen, consult your nearest doctor. Consult them. And that's it for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, before I end the video, I just want to say, if you haven't followed me on Twitter at Technoid12, I was recently in the hospital for a few days. I recently got out, and honestly it's been a rough few days for me, but thankfully I'm feeling much better. Thankfully I'm doing much better, and I just want to take this moment to thank everybody for the nice, kind messages. I appreciate everybody on Twitter, they supporting, and most importantly, I thank you all for continuing to show your support. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you dislike the video, you can hit the dislike button. It helps circulate my videos as well. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care, stay safe, have a good day, and peace!